Hello everybody, it's Rod with the Photo Fair coming back at you with another video. Happy New Year! First video of 2025 for the Photo Fair. Today I'm going to talk about another way to get interesting panoramic photos without cropping. And you do it with one of these. Don't forget, we do have a Photo Fair show coming up. It's a couple months out on March the 22nd, and that's going to be at the Newark Pavilion in Newark, California. That's in the Bay Area. Check your local events calendars for photo shows in your area. They're a great place, to find cool lenses like these, tilt and shift lenses, and so much more. And please give us a like and a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel. So yeah, today I'm going to show you how you can use a tilt shift lens or just a shift lens. You don't need the tilt function for this, but rather than to use it for perspective control, you can use it to extend your camera into a panoramic camera. You'll have to stitch the photos together, but you can do it without altering the perspective. And so I want to talk a little about that today. Normally, if you do a panorama where you stitch it together, you have to rotate the camera and you try to get it on a nice even axis, then you have to stitch them together. But when you turn the camera at a different angle in order to get more in the scene for the second and third and fourth shots, you're changing the perspective. The view changes. And the software has to kind of stitch that together to compensate for that rotation. Now, one thing you could do is you could just take a picture with a wider lens, take one picture, and then crop it down into the panorama. And that's fine, but you crop away a lot of your pixels. In this way, you can do it with a tilt and shift lens. And again, you only need the shift function to do this. I'm going to show you how you can turn 3 photographs into one big, beautiful panorama with minimal or no cropping, depending on the subject matter. I'll show you with some photos that I've done. I'm going to start with just a little demonstration through, video through the lens of the camera of what I'm doing. And then I'll show you some actual real-world applications that I did to achieve that with some photos you've seen on this channel before. So anyway, let's get right into it. Hey, here I'm just showing you on this particular lens, the shift control is here, controlled with this knob you see me fiddling with here. There's a lock knob on the other side that locks it in place. For this video, I didn't need to lock it in place, but you can see it moving. You can also see that there's indent marks there. Those are 1 millimeter each. Okay, what we have here are these 6 bar glasses, and they're arranged in a row here on this flight board, and that's sort of simulating a city skyline or some other landscape. And this is a 28 millimeter lens right here, so I can get the whole thing in the picture at 28, but ultimately I have to crop it down. Cropped down, you get sort of a traditional sort of panoramic looking scene, but now we're going to use the 45. The 45 yields a picture that looks like this. Obviously, I'm not getting anywhere near the entire field of view here. And this is where the shift is going to come in. I have the capability of shifting 11 millimeters in each direction. And that just happens to be enough to get the entire 6 glass board. But what I am getting here is significantly more image magnification. The glasses are much larger in the frame, and thus there's more detail. And when I stitch the 3 pictures I'm going to do together, I end up with a much larger file with a lot more detail. Okay, here we are live in the camera, and I'm going to shift the camera, or the lens rather, to the left. And actually you're moving the lens to the right, but it's showing in the viewfinders to the left. That's just the optics. And now I could snap a picture there, snap a picture in the center, and then slide it over to grab the right-hand side. Again, you're actually shifting it in the opposite direction, and that's because photos are inverted on the sensor. But that's all you do. You take a shot at each of those 3 settings. So here you see the 3 images that were taken by simply shifting the lens. With this lens only having 11 millimeters of shift, you only need to do 3 pictures. More pictures will not make a difference. But you'll notice there's very little distortion. Everything is nice and straight. It's going to be an easy stitch job. You might think, but Rod, I could just put the camera on the tripod, rotate it a little to the left, take a picture, rotate a little to the right, take a picture, take one in the center and do the same thing. Stitch them together. Let's take a look at that scenario. So here I did precisely that. I took the center picture and then I just rotated the camera on the tripod in order to take in the entire row of glasses on each side, taking the same 3 photos and notice the distortion. It's got a bowing shape. It's because I literally changed the angle of the camera. The perspective completely changes. This will end up with a slightly rotationally distorted panoramic. And I'm going to show you panos made from both of these series of photos so you can see the difference. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. We're going to use a feature called Automate, and you go to the File menu here, right down there to Automate right here, and then we're going to choose Photo Merge. And that's right down here. And now we're just going to leave it on auto. We're going to let Photoshop determine the type to use. I'm going to browse for the photos I'm going to use. And I have to fiddle around here and get to the right directory. And here's a bunch of photos for this video. And I got to figure out which ones are the ones. And bear with me here. So you use command and click on here, and it just saves the, if you're on a PC, it's shift click usually. So here we are now. I'm going to have vignette removal, and I'm going to have any distortion correction, geometric distortion. And so generally I do that. It makes your skies look better if you're doing a real city panorama. So you see how fast that worked, okay? And it's because it really didn't have to work very hard. I'm going to do kind of a little crop here. You'll notice there's a little bit of sloppiness in the panorama there, just because stitching is never perfect, but it was way more perfect than if you do it with a rotational. Okay, I'm done fiddling with the crop here. Now you would just export it like you'd export any Photoshop project. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, the one where we used rotational, and we'll go to Automate. And so same deal, going to come down to Photo Merge. And select the files just like last time. All these files are marked with the 2. That's the series I did where I rotated the camera rather than using the shift. And you're going to notice this one's going to take a lot longer because there's a lot more correction this thing has to do. It's much harder to stitch these images at different angles. Look how long that's taken. It's taken forever. And this isn't super duper high resolution. If you're working with some of the ones I do that are, 15 pictures stitched together and, half a gigabyte file size, it can take a long time. All right, so here we are. Now, you'll immediately notice there's some bowing. That's the rotational distortion, and the software is doing the best it can to keep those glasses roughly the same size, relatively distortion-free except for the bowing. That's where those manual settings, rather than using the automate or the auto function, you can kind of play around with that rotational distortion and make it do some pretty cool stuff. But generally, auto gives you the cleanest final panorama. So here are the 2 images, the top being with the shift lens and using shift to get the whole scene in the picture, the bottom using the exact same lens but with no shift and rotating the camera on the tripod to get everything in. You can see the top one is definitely better, especially for a panorama of a cityscape or something with lines where you can see the distortion. So this one looks much better. So here you see on the bottom, this was just the one I did with the 28mm lens, which had enough horizontal coverage to get all of the glasses in one shot. Of course, I cropped away the bottom and the top to give it that panoramic look. The top one is the one with the 45 tilt and shift and 3 images stitched together. Look at the difference in the file size. And the detail is significantly better when you look at these photos on your computer screen. Obviously, in the video at 1080p, you really probably can't see the difference. The exposure difference was just I was a little brighter on when I shot the 28. All these images were made with my R5, which is a 45 megapixel camera. With the 28mm lens, you're cropping away half of your pixels. With the 45 TSE and the stitch job, you're adding about 50% more pixels. Here's an actual panorama that I did using this exact 45mm TSE and doing exactly what I did in this video. I did crop this one a little skinnier. I didn't want any more foreground than you see here. So this one's about 68 megapixels, 13,190 by about 4,400. So did crop a little off the bottom just because that's what I wanted and that's what fit the project I was doing. Anyway, there is a calculator online. I'll put a link to it in the description for calculating the focal length required to get a certain angle of view, or what the angle of view is based on your focal length and your sensor size. The sensor size, when you use this shift function, effectively with this lens, which has 11 millimeters of shift, it's effectively a 24 by 58 sensor instead of the normal full frame 24 by 36. And that's because that shift is allowing you to get a larger sensor area by utilizing 3 photos. Also, I did a video using the Canon 17 tilt and shift L lens where I go to the city and we do perspective control, and I show you how the perspective control works as well as how the tilt can work in urban environments. If you're interested in that video, got a link to it down below. So yeah, there you have it. Yet another use for a shift lens. This is the 45 millimeter Canon TSE. This is not an L lens. But it is still kind of expensive. These run about $400 used. And Canon was pretty proud of them when they were new. But the L series versions of these lenses are much more expensive. You could get Canon's 50 millimeter L series TSE lens. That lens does everything that this lens does, but it also is a macro lens, a true macro lens. It can do half-life or full life size. I can't remember what it is. These lenses are also excellent for macro, but that's another video. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Give us a like, and we'll see you in the next video right here on YouTube.